Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yay!
Yay! So go ahead and introduce yourself and your claim to fame here in Dayton.
All right, well, I'm Lacey Raburn, and I run Raburn Acres.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So how did you decide to become a flower farmer?
Well...
And explain what Raburn Acres is.
Okay, so Raburn Acres, it's a little farm stand. It's just outside of town, past the golf course. I have like a self-serve stand. So it's honor system, and I put out the bouquets, and I grow as much as I can. And whenever I don't do a great job growing, I buy it, or if it's like off season. So that way I can have flowers from Valentine's Day till December, even though our growing season is just kind of in the middle of that. So it's just fresh flowers, fresh cut flowers, local fresh produce, or any other produce that I'm like, I have to have this. So we'll just bring it down and do that. And it's, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
Yeah. How did you decide to get into that?
Well, so I started off in, okay. I graduated and I was a registered dietitian. And part of that is because I love food. Okay. Like everything to do with food, maybe change my major. And so I'm working as a dietitian. And then we had the 3 kids within like 4 years.
Is this already in Dayton?
No. Okay. So we were up in Crossville. Okay. And so I had 3 kids at home, and we had decided to move back to be across the road from my in-laws. And the property came available. So we jumped on it and we moved in. And I thought, well, I have to do something. Okay, because I'm going to go crazy. And being a dietitian, I thought, I know, I have all these books about market gardening. This is the job for me. Yeah. This is what.
And now you've got the land for it?
I've got the land. I have in-laws who are very proficient at growing even on a smaller scale, but like growing something, which at this point I had done none of.
Prior to being a farmer, I was not a farmer.
Zero. Yeah. Like less than zero. I had all the books, and I think I had a lot of like really big ideas, which is a great place for a late 20s person to be in. Yeah. So we come before the house gets finished. We have the garden tilled up, and it's really funny because the kids were very little. Cheerios was running a thing that if you sent in the box top, they would send you a packet of wildflower seeds. So I did too. I had 2 packets of wildflower seeds, and I had so many vegetable plants. Like it was absurd. The amount, when I look back on it now, I'm like, what was I thinking? But I had so I read everything, how to do the market garden, implement it, 50 tomato plants, peppers, everything. And my one little row, it was the last row tilled. We're going to put these wildflower seeds in. And from Cheerios of all places. This is going to be great. I killed everything. I was about to say,
can't fail.
No, can't fail. This is a surefire way. Oh my goodness. No, it all died. And it all died in like different ways, except for the flowers. And they bloomed and they bloomed and they bloomed. And so we were cutting them, we were bringing them to the house, and everyone was being really encouraging. They were like, this is great. Maybe next year you should do more flowers. And I thought, I will learn. Yes. So the next year I did like 25% flowers and 75% vegetables. And I mean, it's the same story. Like
with the veggies.
With the vegetables, I just killed them all. Like it.
What was killing them?
Different things. Like you're not supposed to mulch heavy around peppers. So they all got like the rot on the stem. We had geese at the time, and they ate all the tomatoes. And then the squash and zucchini would get powdery mildew. So it was just something all the time, different all the time, killing these things. I can like moderately grow vegetables now, and at the time, I think I'm running around out here in this garden, and I know Cora was like 2 in a princess dress. So I've got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old trying to run a market garden with no experience, nothing. Like, what was I thinking? I don't know. So the flowers started taking off, and then I kind of found myself looking around this community and noticing that there's a lot of really proficient farmers in Dayton. We have generational farms, and they're growing really great things.
And they're doing it successfully.
In part because their parents taught them. Yeah. Like we're looking at generations of knowledge, generations of equipment, and they're doing amazing. And I continued to kill the flowers, and finally, about that third or fourth year, I said, "Forget the vegetables. We're just growing flowers."
Lots of people in Dayton can grow tomatoes.
Yes,
we're gonna focus on.
I'm gonna do the flowers, and just that's what I'm gonna do. And so I kind of put the vegetables to the side. I still grow some that like the varieties that I want. I like lemon squash. So no one else is going to grow that. It's very specific. There's certain tomatoes that I want. So I may grow like a handful of those. But by and large, it's just the flowers. And that ended up being kind of like a really cool, I don't know, what do you call it? Providence, coincidence, like direction. Because once I got into the flowers, I realized that it was a medium that I really like to like make art with. Mm-hmm. And I still wanted it. There was already 2 florists in town, and they're very successful, and they're doing their thing. So if I'm going to come in town and I'm going to do something, it's going to be different from them. And then that's kind of how this thing took shape inadvertently. That wasn't what I set off to do, was make bouquets and grow flowers. But then the more that you learn about the American agricultural system and how, you know, even just like 60, 70 years ago, 90% of the flowers that we had in America were grown in America. And then at the lowest point, it was like 7%. We're importing like 93% of our cut flowers at that point
Where
in time.
from?
Ecuador.
Okay.
There's a strange story there.
Wow.
So it's more now because most people know about Erin, I cannot say her last name, Florette. She's got a documentary on she's got a documentary, and she's two or three books now. And she was kind of started coming in talking about what it took to grow flowers in America about like 5-8 years ago. And since then, this resurgence where you see a lot of people coming in saying, "Oh, I can grow flowers. I can grow flowers." So we're seeing more and more. And even around here, there's a bunch.
So what was the low dip? What was our low point in that dip? The Ecuador.
Yeah.
Like what year?
I don't know the exact year.
Like roughly like 2010 or something like that?
I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think it was like really before I started, because I would have had those books by
already.
like
So
2012. So maybe it was like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And part of it was, you know, Pinterest is taking off. And so all of the girls for weddings and trends and whatever, we're looking at Pinterest, and when you import something from Ecuador, you can get a toffee-colored rose 365 days out of the year.
Right.
That's not how the growing season actually works in our climate. So when you see something, you're not thinking about seasonality. We lost this entire like assumption of seasonality,
right,
that if you got married in the spring, you had to have spring flowers. And so that kind of was like, it created this beast of, well, if you're going to be a relevant florist, you have to import so that these things can be available and be similar. And now it's gone off the rails.
Same thing for food.
Yeah.
Like people expect something like asparagus year round.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because asparagus naturally would have an incredibly short season because it's a spring shoot.
Yes.
And so if it weren't for a global market, and I'm not saying a global market is a bad thing.
It's not a bad, I mean, it feeds everyone.
Right, exactly. But you lose seasonality, which makes things special. Like this is why we don't celebrate Christmas every month.
Right.
Like, you want it once a year.
Yes.
And it's really special because of that.
Absolutely.
And I think asparagus, you know, just like Christmas. Asparagus. Yeah. But, you know, there are things that would have a short season and you would really savor those windows of time where you only get to experience it in that window.
Tulips.
Yes.
I mean, it's 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Like, and if you don't, you know, if you're not getting them in that 6 weeks, then they're being imported. So. Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of fit with my lifestyle and how I like to live my life. And so it all just kind of like evolved into, let's do these market bouquets. But I wanted to do them different. I wanted them to be artistic. Anyone can get on Instagram and see that there are other people doing these things. I'm not original. This is not, you know, like game changing. It just wasn't being done here.
Right.
So learning from them, reading from them, eventually not killing as many flowers, as many plants. So
as far as your timeline, so, you know, you had the Cheerios year, then you had the better year where you planted a little bit more. Like, it kept building to the point that, like, what was the next step in your progress as the next milestone?
it got to the point, we were running it out of the kitchen, out of the home, and we have 3 children, so we've got 5 people living in about 1,700 square feet, no garage. So this was really taking up a significant portion of my kitchen.
Yes.
And with, that's just not sustainable. So we sat down and we said, well, what are we going to do? And we started looking around like different options. I knew when I was building my business, the number one thing that was most important to me was keeping our overhead as low as possible. My priority is not my farm or my business right now. The priority is the kids. We homeschool. That has to take up the majority of my time. And if I buy a shop downtown or I build something that I have to have an employee at, that has to be the priority. And so we knew that limitation is on our business, on my farm, until the children are grown and flown, which is going to be in like no time. So I am fine with that. That's not like a sacrifice on my part, but it is shaping how we're going about this. So I get on what everyone likes, Pinterest, and start looking up, you see the guy selling tomatoes on the side of the road. And I thought, well, this cannot be that hard. And there were several really adorable pictures of farm stands. And some of them a little bigger, they've got people working at them. And I knew I didn't want an employee. I don't want that responsibility. But I came across an article of a beef farmer, and they talked about how they set up a self-serve honor system stand and how lucrative that was when you're keeping your overhead down, right? You're not paying extra people to sit there.
No customer service labor charge.
Right. And then what that looked like for them. And so we read the article and I saved it and I came back and I read the article again. I was like, Warren, I think we should try this. I think this might work.
Doesn't it seem risky?
Well, you think someone would have to steal a bouquet an hour to justify paying someone down there.
Oh, that's a great point.
So we had no problems with theft for 3 years.
Really?
Until October. And then it was I was looking at the numbers and I'm like, we aren't adding up. What is going on? Yeah. And so it turns out, I think I refuse to believe that everyone is bad. I think what was happening was some people were just forgetting to pay. If you're out in town, Anna Cat needs flowers. She's like, yo, Justice, run by and grab some flowers for me.
I'll pay Lacey. I get the flowers.
Okay, so that's understandable. We did.
Is this your way of confronting me? Did we forget to pay for?
You did not forget to pay for flowers. But you could see how it could happen. Yes. So we did catch a couple people stealing, and so since then,
intentionally stealing?
Yeah.
What were they stealing? Were they stealing flowers? What kind of... I want to know.
Why?
I want to know what kind of person... I'm not even throwing shade. I'm just saying, I've decided to burglar. I've decided to burgle.
I've decided to burgle.
And what's going to be my heist? Bouquets.
Yes,
flowers.
Bouquets.
This is the most romantic thief.
It's not one, though. She grabbed 3.
This one person grabbed 3 bouquets? So very romantic thief.
Yeah. She just...
To resell? I still don't get it.
No, I think she took them home.
For her.
Just looking at them.
I just loved I don't know. It's obviously not cool. It's obviously mean and theft, but it's also hilarious. It's like
I was flabbergasted, and it was quite shocking. And I was so frustrated. And I think anyone that follows me on social media knows what happened next. I went down the next day and I counted the money and I realized I was 3 bouquets short. And we had left the house early, 15 minutes early, so that we could make bouquets before church. So we're leaving for church and I go down there. I realize that we've been burgled. People, she's taken 3 bouquets, or 3 bouquets were missing. And I fire off a social media post I was so frustrated and I just did not. Usually I am over analyzing every social media post, and I wasn't thinking about it at all. Fire this thing off. If you guys are going to steal, I can't do it.
Yeah. And everyone's like,
oh, the community. And then I just left the phone in the van when we walked into church. Yeah. I cannot even deal with this right now. I'm just going to leave the phone. By the time I came out, there was 100 notifications. People were offering to pay for the bouquets. And I'm like, that's not the point. Yeah. Thank you so much. And some people did. And yes, thank you so much. But the point is that this was beginning to be a problem, and the community just I got so many messages.
Yeah.
And people are still coming up and asking me about it, and I'm like, I promise I'm over it.
Did you ever figure out who it was, or did you ever get to at least of. Is the problem solved?
I don't know. Well, the problem is going to be solved because Warren took over our head of security. Head of security. We had cameras. They weren't clear enough to really be like, hey, it's this person. I'm about 95% sure, but like that 5% is what's keeping you from being why are you doing? Yeah. So Warren, I think there's like 7 cameras down there now. I don't even know where they all are. Yeah.
I dare you. Try to steal from Lacey. I dare you to steal a bouquet.
When you walk in, like the cameras like pan and follow you, and it's like 3 of them. So they're just like.
You like go to reach for a bouquet, and there's like a shotgun cock. It's like, what in the world is going on?
The kids.
You hear all these guns like come out of it.
Yeah, the kids think it's hysterical to just run back and forth now because the cameras are like, you know. So
this is. So the flowers are safe.
The flowers are safe. I feel pretty good coming into 2024. Well, we closed down. I closed down right after.
Seasonally?
Yeah, seasonally. Okay. I just needed a little extra time, I think, this winter to kind of refill and balance back out. So it hasn't really been open.
Gotcha.
And so he's come in. So we'll see. But I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yeah. I think that... I don't think that will be a problem.
But that sounded like a pretty much, besides maybe sometimes people forgetting.
Right.
That sounded like a one-time thing.
Yes.
And so...
people are way more likely to leave extra, I think. And I think that's one reason why maybe some things kind of like were happening that I wasn't picking up on. Because if my bouquets are 15, people will pay 20. A lot of times, and so then it really doesn't add up.
Dropping cash or something?
No, Venmo it.
Oh, is it all digital?
It's not all digital. No, you can do cash, check, PayPal, Venmo. Yeah. I think because they're a good value, and I think people here know that. I really do try. If I'm not going to have someone down there, right, to help you, if I'm not going to do special orders, then I want to give you the very best, and I want it to be different. It's got to be different. Can't be the same thing you can get at Food City. Right. And I think that people have noticed that, which is kind of cool.
And it's just visibly, I don't know. You look at the bouquets and they're cool.
Yeah, trying to do something different.
Yeah, that makes sense. So behind the scenes, like what does it look like to actually grow flowers? As far as I was laughing about someone stealing flowers, but like it's a theft of your time. Like whenever you see that happen, you see all the work that went into it.
Yeah.
So
the business has kind of 2 aspects to it, and one of them is just buying the flowers, designing the bouquets, and putting them out there. And so that's its own. It has a lot of its own challenges. Thing. And then we have the farm, and I don't have a green thumb. I've told people I have an iron will. I am probably one of the most stubborn people that you will ever meet. And I just pretty much refuse to quit on this. And so I do figure out each year how to do that a little better and how that grows every year. It's a balance.
What are some war stories? As far as specifically with flowers, because we've already heard the vegetable war stories. What flowers have proven to be easy for you to grow? What are some surprising difficulties that you've run into when you're growing flowers? If someone were to walk your farm, would anything surprise them? Would they be like, oh, this is different? I didn't expect.
All right, that was 3 different questions. Okay, easy to grow. Easy to grow is you want to grow what wants to grow here. Yeah. So we see the documentaries, we see the Pinterest, we see the Instagram, we see the poppies, and we see the delphinium and the foxglove, and they're gorgeous. Those are not native to our area. They do not like our climate. The roses will not grow here. If you want success growing in your garden, you need to grow what ought to be somewhat native, or maybe it grows in Mexico, because that's our climate. And
our climate is similar to
Mexico's our climate is hot and humid.
Yeah.
So
similar to Mexico?
So somewhat similar. Like zinnias. Zinnias are going to grow here. Okay. Much easier than we can force.
And that's a Mexican flower?
Poppies. I think so. Yeah. I think it's a little south of us. You can't go too far south. So we had eucalyptus trees, which are not hardy in our zone.
Right. Some of them have made it. I've seen a couple decent-sized eucalyptus trees.
Yes.
David Manzer had one that actually got very large.
Yes.
It survived for years, got really big, and then one.
Last Christmas?
No, maybe maybe the previous big storm. This was probably 6 or so years ago, and it bit the dust.
And it bit the dust. Yes,
the trunk had gotten really
no,
big.
they're huge.
Yeah.
I started these 12 trees by seed. So like I held the seeds in my hand, and they grew for 6 years, and they were, I mean, stunning.
Yeah.
They have, some of them have come back from the roots.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So
they can kind of limp along.
They can kind of limp along,
really.
but they're not. I'm like, that was too, you know. But for those 6 years, that was great. So I guess if you kind of have that mentality going in with what you're doing. So that's the easy to grow here is just kind of our native flowers. Azuratum is a really great one that people haven't really seen before, but we have tons of wild azuratum. So then growing like the hybridized cultivated kind, I mean, it just wants to grow. You can't kill the stuff. Celosia is the same way. So these are all fun flowers to grow. The worst thing I think that's happened, it was last year. I planted 18,000 tulips. And that's
gotta be expensive, right?
It was really expensive.
Yeah. That's a lot of, that's 18,000 bulbs.
Mm-hmm. That's 18,000 bulbs, and they are specific cut flower tulips. So they are not your discount varieties. Okay. Like these are ones that are imported from Holland. They're the real deal. And I had read that you need to pre-chill your tulip bulbs here, but I had never done that before, and I'd always had luck, and I'd always been fine. And we went out to pick, and I think I lost 85-90%.
No.
Yeah,
crazy.
That was hard.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That was hard. Yeah. And
do they germ like?
Oh, it's one and done.
One and done.
One
really?
season, they're dead.
It's a bulb.
Not in in Holland.
Oh no!
Not in Tennessee.
I was like, well, you've got next year.
No, there's no next year. So I think half of them rotted in the ground, and then half of them just made leaves and no flowers. And that was a hard one to stomach because for the very first year, I had a market for them. And I had a wholesaler from Chattanooga saying that his designers wanted them. Could he have as much as I could give? And I'm going out picking like 100.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
Yeah.
So this year we pre-chilled the tulips and we planted them. There's a girl in Nashville. So I'm like, who is in my zone? Who's telling? Yeah. And she's like, this is how you should grow tulips here. And she's very vocal about it. She's like, this happened to me on my first year. It's like, well, that first year would have been a lot easier to stomach than year 5. That first year was 500 tulip bulbs.
Right.
So year 5 is 18,000. But me being an idiot, had already ordered the tulip bulbs for this year. So I had already ordered 23,000 tulip bulbs as I'm standing in the garden watching them not grow. And they were already like, you can't cancel that. I was just like, what?
That's crazy.
What am I going to do?
That is a war story.
It's bad.
You should have just kept getting flowers from Cheerios. That would have cut down on your overhead.
I actually emailed them. I was like, hey, do you want to know what your little thing inspired? And they never emailed me back. So.
We don't care.
They don't care.
We're hawking cereal, okay? Yeah. We don't care about that.
Saving the bees. And then, okay, what was you asked 3 things. You said.
What does the flower farm look like?
Oh,
is it in greenhouses? Is it?
I think people have this picture in their head that it's like majestic.
And like you just run your hands through all the flowers
with my basket, and I just frolic, and they
your
jump,
children follow behind,
and they do. Yes, no, it's usually like super muddy. It's a hot mess. So I do have 2 hoop houses, and those are season extenders in our area. They are not to grow like over winter things that should not be growing over winter. So there's no tomatoes in there.
So you just have an earlier spring and a later fall.
Correct. Yeah. Or something that like would survive here, but maybe wouldn't have really tall stems. If I put it in the hoop house, I now have the stem length that I need, right? Because we're living and dying by stem length in the floral world.
That makes sense. Never had to think about that.
Bells of Ireland, they are hardy in our zone. They usually do want to grow here, but out in the field, they'll keep getting like knocked back, and they'll be short. What do you mean,
knocked back?
Like the plant is like a little baby plant all winter long. And then when it gets really cold, like some of the leaves will die down, and some of the leaves will die down, and some of the leaves will die down. until it's just like it's surviving and it's going to look really great in your landscaping, but I can't cut that stem and sell it in a 20-inch bouquet. Right. Whereas if I put those in the hoop house, the plants are not getting knocked back. They're not getting bit by any kind of frost in there, and they're just going to grow and be a lot taller. Snapdragons, kind of the same thing. So things that still want to grow here, they're just making them grow better.
Yeah. Okay, so so you build the farm stand, you do the honor system, and I know that, is it at this point you start venturing into events? Like this is the thing this is where you got on my radar a lot more is when you started doing events. Tell me about that.
We were like, so the farm stand is not yet complete. And Katie and I, which is where so many bad ideas start, are sitting
this
around.
Is Katie Darnell,
that'd be
by the
Katie
way.
Darnell. Yeah. We're sitting around and we're like, man, you know what we should do? We should do like a bouquet bar where people come and build their own bouquets. We're like, yeah.
That is a super fun idea.
It's a super fun idea. And I mean, I thought at the time that I had ordered a lot of flowers compared to what I had ordered before. And the farm stand's not done, but it's done enough inside that we can just kind of have the thing under the pavilion. Mm-hmm. And we'll invite some of our friends. We'll invite the food truck. Like, best case scenario, maybe we'll have like 200 people show up. And that would have been...
200 people, that's a large event. Yeah.
That's not what happened. I believe we had like 1,000 people show up.
That's a 5x of your best case scenario.
We were not staffed for that.
Yeah.
So we just worked as fast
as we could. Was Anna at that one?
I'm pretty sure.
There was one that she came home from pretty late at night and she was like, oh.
Yeah, so that kind of like escalated so quickly.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have enough people to work, and I think my parents came to like help out.
Just jump in.
And just jump in.
So this is the one, so you had the flower bar and food, and so did you run out of flowers? You had to have run out of flowers, right?
I did not. No.
You expected 200 people. You got 1,000 people, and you did not run out of flowers.
At that point in time, I was still really new. Like, I didn't know. Now it's very calculated. I've got like a method. I'll design my bouquet. I know exactly what I need to order.
Okay.
Early on, it was kind of just like, hope I did this right.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. So was it a successful night? Like you said, it was like crazy, but like that's a ton of people. Did you make money? Was it like...
We broke even.
Wow.
I know. So it was like, I am dead and we have broken even. But now looking back, I think that's the one that everyone was like, hey, have you heard about this girl?
Yes.
Did you see what she's doing? So we came out ahead in that.
Have you done it again?
Really got the word out. We've done a couple.
Of the flower bars?
Of the flower bars.
Yeah.
We did one last year at Mother's Day. It's just been a lot smaller.
And why is that? Have you turned it back? Or?
Honestly, I think that first year, it was right when COVID had let up.
Gotcha.
I think everyone was just looking for a reason, looking for something they could do with their mom outside.
Yes.
And the weather was perfect, and it was new, it was different. So the events, though, now are so much more successful in that they are profitable. We're not dead afterwards. Katie and I can usually run them, with a very little bit of help. We know what we're getting into.
Do you still bring a food truck in?
This last Mother's Day, the food truck came down. We had Jennings and a couple of other people out there, and then afterwards, like, everyone cleaned up and we just kind of kicked back and ordered out food, and it was great. And I was like, okay, we're finally turning a corner.
Nice. And is that the plan for this coming Mother's Day?
I don't know. TBD. We gotta get through Valentine's Day first.
Yes.
Like, that's
what's your biggest day?
Mother's Day.
Okay.
Mother's Day is the biggest day.
Okay.
So, because, you may buy your wife flowers, or you may buy her chocolate or jewelry, but everyone getting their mama something. And what do you get your mom?
Flowers.
Flowers, because she has everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Or a potted plant.
Yeah.
So.
Do you sell potted plants?
I sell some house plants, but no, there's other people in town doing a really great job with potted plants. And so it's kind of like we're all in a small community. Mm-hmm. So finding what we do well, just stay in our lane.
I want to hear more about some of these events. So there was that one that was crazy. Was that the only crazy one, or? How much crazy you got, Lacey?
More than I'd like to own up to. Oh no, we had Mark Box come and sing. So we had the ladies' night out, and we got better with the flower bar. We did not have a ton of flowers left over. We still had the food truck. Mm-hmm. We had some other stuff, and then he came and he sang. And people are still talking about that one too, because he's really engaging. Yeah. So he came to our farm to table. It's who sang at Farm to Table this last year.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and that was super fun. Oh, and then we hosted one of your. Yeah. That was low key, and that was fun. There was no flowers in that one.
It was beautiful though.
But it's still it's such a nice with the lights and the tree.
The farm stand is really gorgeous. I love being out there. My favorite thing, and is the Westminster Chili Cook-Off, which I guess isn't really the stand. I don't know, but y'all host it. One of my favorite nights. I look forward to it every year. It's just awesome. We got a huge bonfire going, and all the food is in the stand. And I don't know, you just have such a beautiful spot carved out there. It's just, I don't know. It's so lovely. It's really lovely to go out there. Yeah.
I can't believe how it all came together, kind of inadvertently, because it wasn't like this was the plan. Right. There was no mastermind going into this. Just like, oh, we're doing this now. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go.
So what's your forward-looking? What's your vision? I
have big dreams.
Let's hear them.
Okay, so like I said, for the next, Cora's what, 8? Yes. So she's in the house maybe 9, 10 more years, and that's the priority.
Your youngest?
That's that's the little one. So for the next 9 to 10 years, I just have this vision of laying a really solid foundation on the farm. And for me, that means actually becoming a proficient farmer. Let's not kill the majority of what we plant. Step 1. But then also
do no harm. That should be the motto of Raburn Acres.
Yes.
Do no harm.
But then I want to transition the farm into more pollinator habitats and native grazing areas. So
grazing for
sheep and cows and pigs.
Sheep and cows and pigs that you're going to
I own
procure?
now.
Oh, you already have?
Yes, I have a little flock of sheep.
I didn't know this.
That's where the horror stories come in. When you start adding animals to a farm. We started off January 1st last year with 3 dogs and 2 cats, and the cats kind of lived outside and the dogs were inside dogs, and that was what we started. And we ended this year with 43 farm animals.
This sounds like chicken math.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. We got the chickens, and then we got some ducks, and then I was reading back to the whole food and sustainability and small agriculture. I was like, oh, the meat sheep.
Yeah.
I love lamb.
Yes, absolutely.
Lamb is great.
Absolutely.
So let's buy this flock of sheep and.
So you bought a flock?
Oh, I bought a flock.
And then, do they need to be pre-shilled?
Oh, I immediately killed them.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. I
do no harm.
They came in. We got 3 ewes and 1 ram, and 2 of them came to me pregnant. And so they had their 2 babies, and immediately one of the moms died. Oh, what? I mean, well, this is tragic. I'm very upset. This is my mama's sheep. So now I have 2 babies, 2 moms, and 1 ram. And then one of the babies dies. And that's when I found out that you can take a dead animal to UT and they will tell you what killed it. So that is for $16. That's a fun fact, Dayton. So we loaded that thing up, took it off, and found out later that I wasn't feeding them enough. So now I know the worst farmer ever.
Oh no!
They had green stuff in the field. I thought they were fine. They weren't.
So they need now supplemental.
Yeah, their area was not proficient for them. I think
because you can do the math on how much grazing land per sheep. So what happened?
Well, I think that the moms, when they're nursing, need more. And they needed grain. She needed sheep food. Turns out they're supposed to have 2 pounds. I now have a book. So reading the book. And
can they eat cereal?
I don't know.
Cheerios?
Go feed them Cheerios? I don't think so. So then we had 2 moms, 1 baby, and 1 ram. And one of the moms, she was psycho. She was going to hurt someone. And I went out one day and she almost rolled me over and I was like, you're gone.
Dinner.
So lamb is delicious. So now we have one mom, one baby, and one ram. But she's pregnant.
But you can. That's a sustain. You can.
Like, we're gonna grow it from there. Yeah. So she's pregnant. So we're like, come on, please do not die. The opening line of the book that I have is sheep are the dumbest animals on God's green earth. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the truth. They're just looking for ways to die. Yeah. So we have the sheep, we have the chickens, we got the ducks, and then someone was like, do you want some pigs? Absolutely. 100%. I'm on board.
Have you ever said no to an animal?
No.
I didn't think so.
Well, one time we went to the flea market in Crossville, and I have like a 9-month-old. No, it was less than that because he was still pretty small. So I'm like carrying around my baby, and there was a bottle-fed goat, and they were like, do you want this goat? Absolutely. We rode home with the goat in my lap.
They saw you coming.
It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
We had to rehome her after she ate all the wiring off of Warren's motorcycle.
So there you go. So that makes sense.
She's gone now. So we got the pigs, and then we had 2 girl pigs, so we needed a boy pig, so now we have 3 little piggies. And then my last thing that I really, really wanted, other than a dairy cow, which is totally coming, I can feel it happening this year.
You feel it in the air.
Was meat rabbits.
Really?
Meat rabbits
That sounds like an earlier on thing. Like, meat rabbits is like chickens. That's the thing you start with that like convinces you for the later things. Like, you're all into sheep and everything like this, and now you're getting meat rabbits?
Well, because meat chickens are super gross. So for me, like, meat rabbits, I was like, that is an equivalent, and they're furry and adorable. And so I gathered the children around, and I was like, guys, I want to get meat rabbits. And they were like, that's fine, Mom, but do we have to kill them? I was like, no, you don't. You just can't bond with them. So. And
that was the deal?
That was the deal. So we now have our 3 meat rabbits. Okay. Which this is funny. So we go, and this is like a month ago. It's not long at all. And I was like, I need 2 girls and a boy. And she was like, great. These are the girls. These are the boy. We pick our 3 out. We bring them home. We put them together. We're like, awesome. And like nothing kind of happened, but I thought maybe they were just shy. So we left, and we just assumed that we had 2 girls and a boy, and we were going to have baby bunnies in like 30 days. So I'm looking at the calendar, and it's right before this winter storm that just happened. And the babies are due when it's like 2 degrees outside. So I'm like, great. We had to set up a maternity ward. So we go into the shed, we clean the whole shed out, we put all these things in, I get everybody set up, and I think this is perfect. But I'm picking up these rabbits, and like, you don't like look pregnant.
You don't
feel pregnant. So my father-in-law was over, and he has had a lot of experience with meat rabbits. I was like, hey, Wayne, could you come look at my setup? He was like, absolutely. So I was like, they don't really look pregnant. He's like, are you sure that you have 2 girls and a boy? I was like, yeah, that's what she said. No, we had 3 boys.
How does she do? What?
I texted her back, and I was like, hey, I have 3 boys and no baby bunnies. And she was like, I am mortified, so embarrassed. She immediately came and brought me 2 girls and took 2 of the boys. So now we have our little starter thing of meat rabbits.
And has there been any more? Has it been more amorous among the rabbits?
Oh, immediately, yes.
Okay. It had been a while.
The amore.
Well, they live on a flower farm.
Yeah. So, it was like Thumper in there. So we're like, okay, here we go.
Okay. Now we're 30 days out.
Now we're 30 days out.
And they won't be due...
Hopefully.
In 2-degree weather.
Hopefully they will not be, yes. Yeah. Because I think it's like February 20th. So there's still possibility. It'd be a little chilly. Yeah. But I was too excited. Yeah. So...
As was Thumper.
Yes. Honey Bunny.
Honey Bunny?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Honey Bunny, because we thought that it was a girl, but it was a boy. So we're not changing the name. That's just what he is now.
It is, yeah.
So we have all these animals. So now, when I'm looking at the farm, we have like 26 acres in fields. The front 5 will stay a pollinator habitat because we host the Ray County Beekeepers Association. Those are not my bees. Yeah. Everyone can see them out there. I don't do bees. They don't like me.
The bees don't?
No, they hate me, which is like
ironic because you're growing their flowers.
I have conversations with them every spring, and they still continue to fly in my hair and like get trapped in there. So then I'm like hitting my head like an idiot, out in the field trying to get the bees out of my hair.
And I assume these are honeybees?
They're honeybees.
And does the association sell the honey?
So the Beekeepers Association, it's really cool because you can apply for a hive grant and they take a new beekeeper and they pair it with an established beekeeper and then teach them how to take care of their hives all year long. And at the end of the year, they get to take their hive home.
Oh,
so the president has some of her personal hives out there, and she does sell honey, and I do buy it to resell at the stand. But most of the hives are going out into the community.
That's amazing.
After they're being taught. So we'll keep the front, like 5 or 6 acres, in a pollinator habitat for them, and then we have my little growing area.
Okay.
And
because the pollinators are not what you're putting in bouquets.
Correct. That's theirs. It's very like...
Gotcha.
Yeah. Unless it's like a really special occasion and someone wants one... I may go pick one thing, but by and large, no, that's separate. And what's really cool, actually, is that native bees are not a native honeybees are not a native pollinator in America. So the Pollinator Habitat is a grant funded by the NRCS, which is the National Resource for Conservation Services in our area. And it is for the native pollinators. It's not even for the honeybees. Now, the honeybees love it.
So what are the native pollinators?
They're usually things we don't like sweat bees, bumblebees, carpenter bees,
honeybees
wasps.
Are not native at all? Or they're just not pollinators natively?
Honeybees are not native to America.
At all?
I don't believe so. No, our honeybee is not native. And it's really interesting because you will see...
That's right. They're European, aren't they?
They're European.
Yeah.
They prefer flowers that originated in Europe.
Tastes like home.
They do not prefer native varieties. They will use them.
Yeah.
But if you put them next to each other, so you will actually see them prefer a lot of blue.
Interesting.
They love blue.
Yeah.
So the azuratum is a big hit for them. Cornflower is a big hit for them. I try to plant some just for them. Because honeybees are the opposite of kind of what a flower farmer wants. So the job of a petal is to attract a honeybee. Mm-hmm. And once it is pollinated, or a pollinator, yes. Once it is pollinated, the petals fall off.
You don't want that.
I actually
growing flowers.
Don't want that. Yeah. So my job is to beat the bees.
What triggers that? Maybe this is too specific. What triggers that?
Is it
once... What triggers how does the flower know to drop its leaves once it's been pollinated? That is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Crazy.
And the flower's dead.
And
so,
but then it turns into a seed. Like this is how it seeds.
And then it makes more for the next year.
Incredible.
So their pollinator habitat is theirs. Yeah. I'm not going out there.
And is it self-sufficient, meaning it's self-seeding and just keep doing
It's supposed to be. Mine failed. I've tried this one. We spent like 2.5 years putting in 12 acres of a pollinator habitat, and we're sitting out there, and Cam came out and he's looking at it and he was like, yeah, it died. I guess we'll try again. It's like,
wow.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Do it again. I'm starting to see what you mean by the stubbornness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There is a contrariness that has to kind of go with it because you just got to kind of shake it off and be like, all right, we're gonna do it again. Because it took 2 years.
Yeah.
To get it in, and then you're sitting out there and it's failed. But that's okay.
Yeah.
So then we have the growing area. We have like some personal fruit trees. But then we still have a lot of other fields, two little patches of fields, and I want to plant those in native grasses. So those are not popular for our farmers around here. There's not very many farms that are growing pastures of native grasses, but native grasses are what's supposed to grow here.
Right.
So I want to transition the whole farm
to native grass.
To a native pollinator habitat and native grassland, and then work and hopefully Cam can teach me how you rotate pastures and you can get these animals in this pasture in a sustainable way that is generating meat for people around us.
And so your goal, like you've just been talking about, your vision for the future for the farm is more meat oriented pasturing.
The beat's just for us.
Okay.
Yeah. The farm, just to have this like cohesive land. Yeah. We have this land. How are we using it in a way that it was meant to be used? Yeah.
And before we started recording, you were talking about Dayton being a place that has so much, and I don't know, oftentimes we were debating whether or not it was people take it for granted. My thought was maybe people just don't realize what all's here. But I want to like kind of pick that conversation back up. Like what was your point there with like all of this stuff that Dayton has? Do you remember?
Yeah. So one of the things that just continually impresses me about this town is the resources that we have. This is an agricultural community, and I'm really happy to have found my spot with flowers in it. But before me, there was so much that was going on. And I learned more every year about what people in this community are doing. We have farming families that are growing heirloom tomatoes, and they are so affordable compared to what they are in the city. Mm-hmm. You know, and for years, one of the families in particular, you know, Grady Swafford would take the stuff to Nashville and sell it for like 4 times what he sells it here.
Wow.
And it's just unbelievable what we have. We have people growing all sorts of things. That community on the mountain are really supportive of each other.
I love that.
Isn't that amazing? Like they're all farming.
Yes.
And they will not, you know, hesitate to help out another farmer, support another farmer. If you'll see them like buying other farmers' stuff. If you're coming to one of the guys and you're like, hey, I have these random peppers. Would you be interested in them? He'll be like, yeah. And then, you know, he's going to turn around and resell them and kind of get them out. And so we have all of these raw ingredients that are just not available everywhere else. And then you come into town, we've got Monkey Town, like brewing great beer. We have 2 coffee roasters in town that are unbelievable. Now, all of this stuff is here, and people do not realize how good we've got it. In this little town.
No, I totally agree. There really is so much there. I think that, like, I think you were saying that people take it for granted. I think a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like even John Pyatt of Harmony House, like, I don't know how many people know that he roasts. Like you walk through the door and to the left, there's a roaster.
Yeah.
He buys his beans, select from farmers, and then he roasts them in-house. That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have all of this here.
Yeah. And all of these farmers. And so a lot of times, so let's plug people in, even myself included. If I wanted to buy this amazing stuff, well, first of all, let's talk about you. So if I wanted to buy your flowers, where can I find them?
So it's 710 Payne Lane, or you can put Raburn Acres in Google Maps. Get you right there. Just right there. It's on 27
I can bring
North.
cash or Venmo? Or...
Yes. Cash, check, PayPal, Venmo. And then also available at the stand, though, is a lot of this produce.
Oh, well, there you go.
So you can just come to my farm stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go up the mountain. I'll buy a few boxes of the stuff, and I'll just bring it down because it is a bit of a trip.
Yeah.
To go up the mountain.
And if it's a one-stop shop.
Right. So I'll get all the things. I have the local Hoff sauce, which is grown here, made in Chattanooga. I have some other things that is kind of local-ish, and it's all just there.
Yeah.
Still honor system, self-serve, open all the time.
Yeah. And not to cut into your sales, but I know that there's also a lot of the farmers go downtown, or do they still do that?
No. I mean, a lot of them have like their own little shops. Like their own places. They're
because they used to park at the courthouse.
Correct.
And then they made the parking spot by the walking trail.
And I think there is a farmer down there.
I've seen some down there.
Yeah, there's some, and it's very seasonal.
Yeah.
And it's little, but then all the time, you know, you go up. What is it, 30 to go up the mountain?
Yeah, 30. Yeah.
You've got Grady and Cameron right there.
Okay.
Gary Swafford Farms and Grady Swafford Farms.
Okay.
And they've got just...
And they have their own stands?
They do. They have their own stands kind of on 2 different sides of the road. Gotcha. And they have a ton of stuff. Cool. And it's just magical.
That's amazing.
I mean, the tomatoes. I really want a tomato.
Yeah, we need to get some tomatoes.
Well, they're not good right now. It's back to the asparagus. There's no, the seasonal...
You can get a tomato.
Yeah, but it's awful.
It's going to be terrible. Yeah. You can get one at Walmart. Yeah. And it'll taste like sand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awful.
So Dayton has all this to offer, but I remember you talking about the town Dixon. Did you say you were from Dixon?
Yeah, I'm from Dixon.
Okay. And you were expressing some worry, like we both love our town and we like to see it growing in cool ways and bringing in like new businesses and like cool offerings and this, yourself included, like people bringing in really great stuff for the community. But like we don't want to become a not small town.
No, I know.
So what do we do?
Hard. I don't know. Just out there growing flowers. I have no answer for that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you kind of keep it smaller, because you don't want it turning into, I go home now and to Dixon, and there's just so much. It's so much bigger. Yeah. And the little stuff is still there. The little shops, the super cool downtown, the old family stuff, it's still there. It just seems dwarfed by all this other like junk.
A lot of that is because we were talking its proximity to Nashville.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's anything, we have some proximity to Knoxville, closer proximity to Chattanooga.
But Chattanooga's kind of crunchy too.
Right,
so I think
exactly.
we're kind of fitting into that vibe of being more agricultural. And what I would be more concerned about is that we're not supporting these farmers and that they're selling out and they are getting tired of it. So,
getting tired of
farming. It's hard.
Farming and selling locally versus just going
or just selling the farm.
Or just selling the farm. Yeah.
Just sell the farm. Somebody else will buy it. A big guy will buy it. Get a contract. Just kind of ship it all off. And you lose the little stuff. You lose the heirloom tomatoes. So they're still Dayton Mountain tomatoes, and they're still good. They're still better. But I mean, they're not like
the real deal.
The real Cherokee purples, you know.
Yeah.
But I think when I started, you bring in a purple tomato and they'll be like, "Why is that tomato rotten?" I was like, "No, this is a good tomato." And now people are like, "Oh yes, Cherokee purples are in." So I think there's some education going on. Yeah. I think we're in the right direction.
It's like the conversation I had with Kirby. He had the same hill to climb with beer because people will go in and be like, I'd like Bud Light, whatever, and he's like, "Okay, Can I talk you into a little something else, And so he had his own hill to climb in that same aspect.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be compromises. What I really appreciated in his interview is that he ended up selling, like Budweiser or whatever, but that was a compromise he made to get people in the door, and over time, he could introduce people to other kinds of beer.
Yeah.
And I think there's a humility to that I think anybody coming into Dayton, I don't know. This is one of the things whenever we're talking about Dixon and how to avoid all this kind of stuff. I think that new people that come in, you were saying Dayton is welcoming to implants. Like, I'm an implant, you're an implant. And so far, I have never felt like I was,
an outsider
or anyone was hostile or anything like that. It's been really warm and welcoming and just hit the ground running, and it's great doing business. But I think that comes with an ability to have a little bit of humility and just like, don't be a snob. Don't be a snob. This town is already great. It doesn't need you to be great. So figure out how you can serve.
How can you fit in, and how can, here's what I tell the kids all the time, because we'll do the farm to table and we'll do some other things that take up a lot of time that I drag them along to because they're homeschooled. So here we go. We're all going.
Yeah.
We have to build the community that we want to live in. Cindy's doing it. Monkey Town's doing it. Screen Door's doing it. We're all building this community that we want to be a part of, that I want my kids to be a part of.
Right. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's amazing
to be able to come in and do that, and like here I can go be and serve on the farm to table board. And I didn't grow up here. I don't know how this started. I wasn't involved in it when it got started, and it doesn't matter. If you want to help and you want to pitch in, just come on.
I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love living here.
It is neat.
Yeah, it's a great town. Thanks for coming on the podcast and
kind of
explaining what you're doing up there. I'll make sure to include is it okay to include the farm address in the show notes, so y'all can go and buy flowers and tomatoes and eggs and
hot sauce
and
grits and
whatever you want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Good.
It comes up to me, why can't you just go to the grocery store like a normal person?